Good afternoon, all of our guests. Welcome to this virtual exchange, Building Online Programs in Higher Education, Strategies, Partnerships, and Models. Our panelists today are Dr. Janet Dilling and Dr. Audrey Casserleigh. Our interpreters will be Alberto Rogers and Alexander Rijo. Para nuestra audiencia en español, notar por favor que contamos con interpretación al español en la casilla de abajo. Puede darle un clic para activar el servicio de traducción, interpretación simultánea. I would like at this moment to introduce Luke Schellem, the Cultural Affairs Officer of the United States Embassy in Santo Domingo, and he will kick off this event. Luke, it's all you.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. On behalf of the United States Embassy in Santo Domingo, I'm very pleased to welcome you to the 7th webinar in our higher education series. It is a pleasure to be here with all of you to explore building online programs in higher education, strategies, partnerships, and models. Promoting access to high quality education is one of our key priorities at the U.S. Embassy in Santo Domingo. And I am very happy that Dr. Janet Dilling and Dr. Audrey Casserleigh, professors in emergency management and homeland security at Florida State University, are able to share a presentation on strategies for starting an online program, building and growing online or hybrid classes, models for cross-disciplinary approaches and the utilization of non-traditional faculty, partnering with outside agencies and organizations, and advantages and disadvantages of certificates, minors, and degrees. Thanks, of course, also to our Fulbright alumnus, Dr. Ricardo Hernandez, who is serving as the moderator for today's discussion. And thank you, Dr. Janet Dilling and Dr. Audrey Casserleigh, for sharing your time and experience with us today. It really does mean a lot to us that you took time out of your busy schedules to join us. So thank you for that. I'm very excited to see the opportunities for collaboration that arise not only from our webinar series, but from today's seminar. So thank you all again, and estamos unidos.
So thank you, Luke, for the welcome remarks. We will now introduce our panelists. Dr. Janet Dilling is a teaching professor in the Emergency Management and Homeland Security program at Florida State University. The original founder of our program, she served as the director of the Emergency Management and Homeland Security program at Florida State University's Center for Disaster Risk Policy for over 10 years. Before coming to Florida State University, she was emergency management practitioner for the military, local, and state government. Dr. Dilling is past president of the American Society of Professional Emergency Planners and has served on numerous state, national, and international advisory boards and committees. She has been a consultant or speaker in over 35 countries in the field of disaster management. Dr. Audrey Casserleigh is professor in the Emergency Management and Homeland Security program at Florida State University. Dr. Casserleigh's area of dedicated research include man-made disasters and the organizational behavior of terrorist networks. Dr. Casserleigh has written 1 textbook, 2 edited chapters, over 35 articles, and has appeared in the press on MSNBC and the Associated Press. She has served as a lecturer and consultant to the United States Department of State, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Korean Secret Service, Chinese Academy of Sciences, American and International Red Cross, Ghanaian National Disaster Management Organization, and the Italian National Civil Protection Service. She currently serves on the Directorate Board of the International Society for Crisis and Emergency Management and the American Corporation for National and Community Service.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hernandez, for that introduction. Audrey and I are both delighted to be here. You know, we are all living in very strange times right now. And some of what we are going to talk about today might seem as if it has been overcome by current events with COVID. However, we hope that some of the strategies we talk about might help you see that what is now a necessity with remote learning might be an actual opportunity that can be seized on in the future. Go ahead, Audrey. Next slide.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Just a minute, please.
Here we go. First, a little bit about what we're going to discuss today. I'm going to cover in just a minute or so the road that brought our own academic program into actually embracing online learning. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some suggested strategies for starting and building an online program that includes some of the things that we have learned on how best to configure it or to capitalize on student enrollment and even student engagement. Then Dr. Casserleigh is going to step in to discuss the importance of partners and some of the actual management and administration of the program, including how to kind of take it to the next level. Next. Our program had actually began in 1997 with just 2 classes that I taught in the classroom. They met with such success that the following year we developed an actual academic certificate program, adding a few more courses of our own, as well as integrating a couple of courses from sister departments in geography and urban and regional planning, who had a course or two that kind of supported what we were trying to do. And we purposely tried to make them all interdisciplinary, our courses. And as a consequence, we pulled students from all over the university, not from just one department. And so from that very beginning, and actually continuing to the present, if students take one of our courses, often first as just an elective, or maybe because they think it sounds cool given all that's going on in the world, then they decide to come back and take more in order to actually complete one of our certificates. By the way, we have 3 certificates now, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. We have one in emergency management and homeland security. We have one in intelligence, and we also have one in unmanned aircraft systems and emergency management. So they have been very popular. Now, about after 6 or 7 years or so of doing in-classroom classes, we added our first online ones. And I have to admit, probably like you, I was hesitant to start teaching online at first. I always thought that my enthusiasm and passion in front of a classroom would not really translate to online learning. I was wrong. Now, there will always be students who prefer to take in classroom classes, and we have some of those. However, what we have found is that students, particularly today's students, really like online classes. One, they are comfortable with communicating through technology, okay? And many of them actually have family conflicts, you know, children, jobs, or even sport commitments at our university that sometimes conflict with regular class times. And so just to give you an idea, in a typical semester, we have about 1,600 students in our emergency management classes. About 350 of those are in the classroom. The other 1,250 choose to take the courses online. Now remember, most of these are on-campus students. We have some from other places, but most of our online students actually are on campus. So as it indicates on the slide, most of our courses are offered both in the classroom and online, though of course not each one every semester. When I talk about online classes, I'm actually talking about asynchronous classes where things like PowerPoint lectures, maybe pre-recorded mini video lectures. We like to use shorter ones here. The readings for that week and the assignments for that week are provided in a weekly module on a platform. For example, we use Canvas. And the students kind of work through them at their own time and pace that particular week. Now, this is different than what we are all doing during COVID. where our regular classroom classes, probably like yours, are now being taught remotely, but synchronously via Zoom during the regular class meeting times. Okay, so this is just like a classroom class, but through Zoom. And this is not the same as what I'm talking about as regular online classes. I wanted to make sure you understand the difference there. Next slide. Now, during this remote phase, as we go into the next slide, there we go. When everyone, I think you skipped one, Audrey. Getting started, go back one. Sorry. There we go. Now, during this remote phase, when everyone is accustomed to some level of online learning, I suggest it might be a great time to get started building maybe a lasting online program. We suggest, just kind of like we did, that you start small with 1 to 2 popular classes that are maybe already offered in the classroom, or that you are teaching remotely probably now, and actually redesign them as permanent online classes. Based on our experience, it really pays to take the extra time to try to make these courses as interesting, as varied, and as engaging to students as possible. That really pays off. And we found it very helpful at the same time, while you're doing this, is to make friends with any offices on campus that maybe are in charge of or promote distance learning on your campus. We found they can be real advocates for helping you promote your classes. Now, some of you down here at the bottom of the slide, you might not see immediately how you could configure a certificate, kind of what we have, or possibly a minor. But we are absolutely convinced that made all the difference in the success of our program. And I'm talking both our in-classroom classes and our online classes. And one thing we learned, don't be afraid to collaborate with other departments that might have a course that would fit within your certificate. It kind of helps you with your course offerings as you're starting out, and it actually helps bring in their students to your department, and actually vice versa as well. And if at all possible, we'd recommend that you try to find ways to make your certificate or minor something that would be attractive across multiple disciplines. We have everything from engineering students to political science, social work, public administration, sociology, just the full gamut of the students at the university. I even had music majors in my classes. So believe me too, the word's going to get out that they can take your classes as electives for their own major and actually kind of double dip, as we call it, to get a certificate simultaneously. Next slide. Then simply as you're able, like it says here, try to add some more courses from your own department. For example, some of these are easier to do. We found that adding an internship class with some of our partner organizations provided another class offering, and at the same time added experiential learning opportunities for our students. If you are short faculty, maybe to teach some of these online sections, you might think about offering summer courses that are online, utilizing maybe summer salaries for professors. I don't know if you do that, that's the way we do it, in your or other departments that can help fill in with some of the load. We found that cool branding, if you will, and promotion of your program really is always helpful. It can be as simple as putting up flyers across the campus, or establishing a website promoting your program. We also try to take advantage of what I call free PR opportunities or public relations opportunities. For example, when our students take part in one of our research trips or hands-on experience opportunities, we try to get all those written up in college or university newsletters or uploaded to some of our or the university's social media platforms. The next one, please, Audrey. I'm not sure if any of you happen to have an applied type degree like we do. If so, we found it very advantageous to kind of build relationships with practitioner organizations and agencies. So Audrey's going to talk more about this. And if you do any consulting or research maybe that you can build around their needs, that's all the better. Here you see some examples of how we have partnered with outside organizations to take students to other countries on research trips, supported state and national emergency management organizations with things like social media info gathering or technology solutions or exercises, actually all of these using our students, and actually have even also supported hurricane damage assessment or real life search and rescue missions utilizing our unmanned aircraft certificate faculty and students. Actually, even as we speak, we have folks out there flying missions for Hurricane Laura in the States. So that's not only an important thing that we do for folks, it also is a good way to promote our program. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Casserleigh to talk more about the importance of these partnerships and management of the program. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Dr. Dilling. So Janet has made it sound so brilliantly easy, and in many ways it can be, right? I mean, it's really about doing and taking advantage of what already exists, right? Not reinventing every wheel. We have found that some of our greatest assets come from practitioners working in the field. And we use the academic outreach to help bring those partners in front of our students. And you'll see here I've written, the truth is often flattering. So some simple things that we say when we meet amazing practitioners in the field is very simply, my students would love to be able to do your job someday. What should they know? You know, if you were going to hire one of my graduates, what would you want them to know? And let that practitioner perspective influence how you build your program. Because for us, it's all about helping those students become successful after graduation. So we want to help encourage them to meet people and to have that practitioner knowledge when they graduate. I want to also emphasize that, you know, and I'm going to talk in a few minutes about finding the right people to work with, but don't be afraid to end relationships that maybe aren't optimal for your program. So for many years, we thought we might have a natural fit with our engineering college. And we often have some of the same issues that we're looking at. But when we went to really partner and exchange students, their perspective it was much more theoretical in many ways than our program, which was looking for very applied skills. And it's not to say that we don't have great respect for each other. It just turns out that in the long run, it really wasn't the best partnership. And so we took that time and energy and focused it in different areas. So as you're building a program, don't be afraid to allocate your limited resources in a way that best benefits the growth. Everybody always wants to know about costs, right? Because there's no money for anything, right? There's never any money for new programs. And the truth of the matter is, our university really had to see that we were a proven commodity before they started to truly get behind us. And one of the things that we did early in our growth is ask our leadership very simply what metrics of evaluation they were looking for to prove we were a success. So some of those evaluations could be things like enrollment numbers. Some of them could be the amount of courses that your program plans to offer. Some of them could be job placement for graduating students. The key here was by asking our leadership how they wanted to evaluate our program, we automatically created benchmarks that we could target. And when we achieved those benchmarks, it was very easy to go back to the leadership and say, we're doing this, it's working really well, we've knocked your metrics out of the park, what's next? Now, every time that we went to the university and asked for money, they told us no. So despite the fact that they were happy to evaluate us, they really kept telling us there was no money. So I want to go back to what Dr. Dilling was saying about taking advantage of pre-existing resources. So just like she said, we started to increase our offerings by partnering with programs that fell in line with what our students wanted. The more specific objectives that we could provide, the more specific metrics that we could provide, the more impressed our leadership was. Now, we started this program in 1997, like Janet said, with only 2 classes. This year, 23 years later, the university has finally come to us and said, we would like to support you to build a degree. Now, I don't want to disillusion anyone, but that's what it took for us. It took 23 years of us doing a program development before our university said, not only would we like you to make a degree, we're going to start providing funding for some of your faculty. Now, you may ask, how did we afford to grow in those years? We were able, very luckily, to come to a cost-sharing agreement where a portion of the classes that we offered, where we received tuition revenue. And this made a big difference for us because it incentivized us to increase enrollment. By receiving a portion of the tuition fees, we were motivated to offer classes that students not just enjoyed, but found appropriate for future skills. I will say too that many universities are very interested in what I would call pure research, or sometimes doctoral level research. And for us, while we do enjoy working with doctoral students very, very much, they are not necessarily our niche. We are an applied program. I'm imagining that many of you are interested in building programs that have an applied component. So for us, when we really started to get at who our core audience would be, it was mostly undergraduates. And then eventually we started to see an increase in master's enrollments. Now, the beautiful thing about focusing on the undergraduates and the masters is that when they join our discipline or our field as practitioners after graduation, you're creating this natural feeder system, a natural network between students who graduated years ago and now hold jobs in the profession, and they can then mentor or offer internships, free, unpaid internships, of course, to our current students. So we're creating this natural networking environment throughout our alumni presence. And for us, that's been a tremendous success. Now, emergency management in the United States, our field, is a relatively small field. You know, I would say there's about 2 or 3 degrees of separation between most of the practitioners in the field. So being able to really integrate into that network it's a proven benefit. Oops. And I wanted to just talk one more thing that I think I would like to attribute our success to. Janet and I have worked together for 23 years. And we have always enjoyed, respected, and laughed with each other. And of all the faculty that have joined us, and we're up to about 8 now, we have always hired for personality. Now, obviously we hire for intelligence too, but of all the candidates, we've always hired for personality. And I really think over the decades that has served us tremendously well, because we enjoy so much our colleagues. Every day I look forward to talking to my colleagues, and we are very strong inside our university because our unit communicates so well. We meet constantly. We are talking to each other every day. We have biannual retreats where we address issues and challenges usually presented by our leadership. Sometimes challenges we have with the classroom. Obviously, we met in March to deal with COVID when we all took the leap to online. But I really want to emphasize how important it is over the long term of any kind of program development to enjoy and respect who you work with. It just makes your job something to treasure. I noticed we have a lot of participants, and I'm guessing there's probably quite a few questions. So we'd like to just go ahead and give the remaining time to our facilitator. Dr. Hernandez, are there any questions?
Yes, I was talking to myself on a muted Zoom screen. I was saying, thank you very much for such a wonderful discussion. I was very surprised to hear that it took 23 years before the university came to you and validated all of your efforts for the previous 2 decades and some. So yes, congratulations over that.
Yes, thank you.
And yes, we do have questions from the audience. It is now the question and answer session of the webinar. And if you have any questions, please submit them to the question and answer box below on your screen. But I will start with a brief one. What options does Florida State University have to support Dominican higher education institutions interested in transforming their programs to online learning?
It's a great question. The State Department has been very generous. We came to the Dominican Republic with several faculty from FSU oh crikey, I can't remember. I think it was at the end of last year. And we have exchanged emails with some faculty. And of course, we've been invited to do this. And I would say that Janet and I, if you have very specific issues or needs and you'd like to collaborate with us, or you think that our information could provide guidance, please feel free to email us. You know, we are available. Absolutely. We're available to talk. We're available for exchanges. Once this pandemic is over in a couple of years, I really hope that we can do some physical exchanges of students. We had actually planned on coming back to the Dominican Republic with some students at the end of this year. Obviously, that all got put on hold. But I imagine by 2022 or 2023, we'll all be maybe traveling again. And I think we are more than willing. But in the interim, you have our contact information. Absolutely. Now, I will say there's not a lot of funding. I can't emphasize this enough, but we're a public university. And so any notions you may have of a rich American university that's throwing money around, you can just let that go, because there is just, not only is there no extra money, we're being told that there's going to be across the board cuts this year. So we don't have a lot of funding, but we're very, very creative and very, very flexible in how we can provide assistance.
Thank you. The next question is, what tips do you have to recruit and engage alumni and integrate them into your coursework? And what sort of impact have you seen from their participation when you have included them?
Yeah, we've had, we try very hard to stay in contact with our former students. You know, some of our students do go on into our field. Sometimes they take our courses and they just enjoy them and they go off and do other things, but many of those stay in touch as well. But particularly those that are going on to positions within our field, we often have a dialogue. We actually have such good relationships with them. A lot of them are my Facebook friends, and I know they are Audrey's as well. So we keep in touch and we utilize them for guest lectures. We use them for networking. We have a wonderful networking experience with some of our alumni, sharing job opportunities that they see. We have an actual, web page just for alumni and students, where if they see a position they think might be interested to our students, they post it, and that is very robust and has been very gratifying to see that they have such good relationships with our program that they want to keep supporting it. So I don't know if Audrey has anything to add.
That's great.
Thank you. So the following question is, do you have any experience adapting this type of online program for secondary education institutions? And what will your recommendations be? And what recommendations do you have for education institutions interested in embarking in online learning?
Yes, so we are not necessarily presenting today on the tactics of offering online education. There's a lot of resources for how to implement online education, and I know there are some very specific challenges with secondary education. We unfortunately or fortunately are in a bit of a position of privilege because most of our college level students do have a very high comfort level with online learning. Having said that, I do not know that all secondary students have the discipline or the dedication, or maybe even, well, I don't want to speak ill of high school students, but I know that it can be a unique set of challenges in secondary education. And I personally, and I know Janet doesn't have any particular experience necessarily teaching high school.
Thank you. So the next question. What are some best practices in transitioning practitioner programs to online learning?
I'm assuming that you're talking, I want to make sure I understand the question. Actually doing online learning for agencies, for practitioners, for training, is that the question?
Yes,
okay.
That is the question.
Yes, we have a long history. A lot of our faculty have prior training backgrounds in instructional design, either degrees or associated training or whatever. And so we have a long history of working with practitioner organizations, both public organizations as well as NGOs, in developing online and in classroom training programs. And we found that works very well, and particularly in these days with COVID, a lot of the training that has prior to this point been in classroom, both because of funding, which is also reduced during this time, and also because of the inability of folks to travel. We see a lot more practitioner organizations moving their training onto an online platform. And we've been involved in talking with some folks about that, and we have done that kind of training in the past for other organizations.
It is a challenge, I would say, with training too. What we're finding is that it's important to have good evaluative modules if you're doing a certification or a training where you have to meet a certain threshold of expertise. Because especially in really life safety oriented fields, it's important that the training tests the participant for knowledge acquired and understanding. Because sometimes with online training, you can just sort of whip through the modules too quickly. So we're finding that the testing module can be really important when it comes to practitioner training online.
Thank you. So the next question we have is, what tips or strategies do you have for acquiring feedback and integrating recommendations from your students during and after the online learning experience?
Oh my goodness, we're evaluated all over the place. I can't even tell you how much we're evaluated. Now, I don't know if this is true in your universities, but our students are not terribly shy about telling us what they don't like. And we, of course, accommodate phenomenally. You know, we have all kinds of accommodations for differently abled people for online learning, including time extensions on quizzes. We have, the university provides software that will read text to students for those with visual impairments. We have quite a few different accommodations. We are, well, I'm not going to use the word old, but I would say that Janet and I are experienced hands at receiving feedback from students. And so over the years, we've been able to take that feedback and definitely modify both our learning tools and our approach to communicating. Now, I would say that I have tremendous respect for Janet. We are huge communicators with our students. We email them through blast emails probably twice a week at a minimum. And then I would say the bulk of our time during the week is probably responding to individual email inquiries from students that have a variety of questions and issues. Some of them about the course content, some of them administration. But honestly, that is probably the bulk of what we do as online professors, is reply to student communications at the individual level. Janet, would you like to add anything?
Well, I might add a couple of things. You know, all of our courses have very, very detailed evaluations at the end of each semester as well, that include not only, you know, the metric type kinds of things that most courses have, but also large sections for comments, which our students are very good about giving. You know, I mentioned before that I was hesitant about teaching online because I was afraid that they wouldn't feel a connection to me. But I can tell you that I communicate more with my students online. Right now, I mean, having spent all those years in the classroom, right now I'm teaching all online. And I have more communications with my students online than I ever did in the classroom, because, you know, you would see them, you know, once to 3 times a week, depending on your class schedule. They would maybe stay, a few of them would stay after classes and, you know, spend another hour talking to different students that way. But now students email me continuously. They call me, I provide them with my cell phone. They call me whenever they want to. We schedule private Zoom meetings. I have regular Zoom office hours during this time too. And my students actually, I think, feel closer to me. You know, every time they see me on campus, it's like, oh, Dr. Dilling, Dr. Dilling. So I know that they know me and they feel me. And I've been told by my spouse that when I'm answering emails to my student, I'm smiling. So, I mean, I feel connected to them too, because I'm always smiling when I'm writing them on the keyboard. So don't be afraid of not having that connection with your students.
And encourage it. You know, we encourage that communication too, and it goes a long way.
It's why we have 1,600 students a semester, honestly.
That's right.
1,600 students in one class?
No, in all our class, in our program.
All of our classes, okay. So the next question we have here is, the Dominican Republic is a developing country that faces limitations in technology. What are best practices or tips you can share in working in populations living in technologically limited regions?
So one of the things that's really important is that we have some students with very limited internet technology, right? So we do a couple of things specifically for them. And we assume that they can only get online sometimes for maybe an hour a day. First of all, it's really important that you keep your file sizes small, right? There's no way, even with good internet, that you can open a big, clunky, long, giant video. So we keep our videos very, very short, very succinct, and we make sure that we actually provide an internal streaming on the website so that they don't need to download the file. The other thing that I know Janet and I both do is we cross-pollinate our information. So things that are said in the video are not exclusive. They're also repeated in the text, and they're also repeated in the slides. So sometimes our students will just have, 1 hour, maybe a week. If they can completely catch up with all their material really quickly in that short amount of time, that's key. Now, we recognize that there are infrastructure limitations globally, but honestly, you have to have some internet to offer an online class, right? Even if it is a hotspot, a Wi-Fi hotspot, but we do expect our students to be able to get online at least an hour a week to check in, check their emails, check their announcements, and look at the course material.
Thank you. So the next question we have is, what skills do facilitators, faculty, need to have to ensure engagement of students in an online course or program?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, it's really important to take, honestly, teaching online is much more difficult than teaching in the classroom. Of course, you're in the classroom, you know the stuff, and you wax poetic about it. But online, you have to work a little bit harder to make sure that they are learning just as much or more, sometimes I think more, online than they are in the classroom, by making the activities, by being, first of all, very organized. I mean, that's something students will always comment about, your material is very organized. It's very important to have your class laid out, whether they might have PowerPoint lectures, they might have a short mini video, I call it a mini video lecture or whatever. They'll have some kind of readings that are due that week. They'll have assignments that they can do, for that week. And that structure provides a lot of comfort to those students, I think. And so they get into a kind of a thing, oh yes, what are we doing this week? And keeping those assignments varied and those resources varied, I think really helps engage the student. And also making sure that they feel that you're there for them, that you really care. And I try to do that, just with the tone of my emails. I know that sounds funny, but there really is a tone that you put into your emails that allows the students to know that you actually care about them. And something as simple as that, just the tone of your emails, just like the tone of your voice, makes a huge difference to these students. And also how many times you reach out to them, like Audrey said before, about putting out email announcements to them, or sending them a class email, in addition to the individual emails and stuff that we do all the time.
Thank you. The next question. In fields that are difficult to engage with virtually and that require collaborative teamwork, what do you recommend to transition coursework to online education?
That's a great question. We have had mixed results with teamwork, to be frank. Anybody who works in education will understand the struggle of teamwork, and anybody who's worked in a team will understand the struggle of teamwork. We've offered a variety of options. Janet's done some really interesting things with requiring students to work in teams and then present their product. And sometimes maybe just one person presents the product, or the whole team presents the product. I have seen teamwork on Zoom. We use the breakout rooms quite successfully. But I gotta be honest with you, it's the struggles that you have with teamwork in the real world are just going to be the same that you have online, which is levels of participation and levels of commitment.
I do think that requiring the students to do some kind of, either in these virtual team presentations or even individual presentations, helps keep some accountability for that. Like in every class that I teach, I have some requirement to have some kind of oral presentation, whether it be an individual presentation or whatever, because then not only are the students seeing the other students in the class and interacting with them on that level, in addition to discussion boards, which I do a lot of discussion boards, which is another maybe tool that could be used for that kind of collaborative thing. I think that kind of makes the students feel more engaged with one another and helps them collaborate a little bit easier. And also, it's an important life skill.
I have tried peer evaluations with teamwork too, where like the peer grade is 50% of the total grade, you know, so it's half peer grade, half professor grade. Sometimes that works too, but not always.
I see Dr. Dilling shaking her head.
Well, I mean, I've had nothing but positive experiences in my 20-something years of teaching at the university as far as people getting along with one another. The only time that I've ever had any kind of inkling of a problem was in peer evaluations. I think sometimes people take that too seriously, that they're there to, you know, provide something more than constructive, you know, feedback to their students. So I'm not really a fan of peer evaluations, that's all.
And I'm not a fan of it for a different reason, because in my experience, the students pencil whip their colleagues. They just automatically give them a perfect grade, even though they didn't do any of the work. So my experience has kind of been a failure because the students don't particularly care about providing accurate feedback.
Oh, fascinating. The next question we have is, you're both also emergency management experts. How are you managing the decision-making process on whether to transition a course to being entirely online, making it hybrid, or having it be face-to-face?
You want me to take that, or you want to take it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Well, it does. I mean, we can both contribute to that. I think that's something that when we develop a course, oftentimes we have first taught a course online. First taught a class in the classroom for most of our courses, not all. And so we kind of know what works in the classroom, and then we kind of massage that to decide how we should present that online to try to get that extra engagement. And also keep in mind that in an online class, they're not sitting for 3 hours every week in front of you. So you have to make up that time with contact hours that are assignments or activities where, you know, they are engaged in the class. So that means there's more work for them, and there's also more work for you to grade all of that stuff. But I don't think we have, Audrey might correct me, but I don't think we have currently any hybrid courses. We have usually had, you know, either in classroom or online, but we have talked about this semester, didn't we talk about one hybrid because of COVID?
We're talking about it. We haven't gone there yet. We're talking about it. But right now, every single class that we offer, when we build a new class, the understanding is that faculty member will create an online version of that class in the next couple of years. So we've had such great success in the past 2 decades offering online classes that 100% of our classes have an online offering.
Thank you. So the next question is, how can Dominican higher education institutions interested in collaborating with you connect with you?
Oh my God. You can Google us. You've got our email in front of you.
Contact us.
Want.
I promise that I will smile when I answer you, just like I smile when I answer the students.
That is wonderful to know. So I noticed that in your presentation, you mentioned that you had once tried to collaborate with the engineering department, but that didn't go through. And being an engineer, it makes me sad. So I am sorry for that.
I knew that would come back to smack us.
No, it was a mutually beneficial split, because some of the things that we were interested in and we thought the engineers were interested in, they weren't. So it was a natural, oh, we tried this relationship, it didn't work, we just went our separate ways. No hard feelings, no animosity. No, we love engineers, my gosh.
Engineers, we love ourselves too.
And we've had a lot of engineering students take our class too. I mean, even practicing engineers that are coming back for their master's degrees and stuff, taking our classes. And I always think there's such a natural, you know, partnership there as far as the actual work, not necessarily the classroom stuff, that I always am happy to see engineering students in my classes.
Oh, they're so smart. Yeah.
It's a very natural fit. I'm surprised more
it
don't
is.
go that route. One question that I have here is, dealing with students in an online setting, how do you handle academic dishonesty?
Okay, let me take that one because this is one of my areas of expertise. So, yes, it is an issue. Now, we have very clear, what we call an honor code rules at our university. We have 8 bullet points in our honor code that cover a variety of possible dishonesty situations. And especially when we transition to online, we want to make sure that we're keeping everybody honest because of cheating with the exams. Now, most of our exams are open book, but we do have a very strict rule that says you can't collaborate when you're taking your exam. So like, for example, if Janet and I were in the same class, we couldn't take our exam in the same room together, you know, sort of cheating on each other. So we make those requirements and that process extraordinarily clear to our students. We have the honor code and the syllabus. We review our expectations for academic honesty at the beginning of the semester, and our program, because we're a bunch of goofballs, we made a really fun video with all the faculty sort of dressed up in weird characters talking about specific points of the honor code. So we make them watch that video. The other thing we do is we've recently added a code of conduct to our syllabus this semester, actually, because what we are concerned about now is people who say inappropriate things on our Zoom calls. And we want to make sure that all our students are speaking respectfully, acknowledging differences, and bringing up differing ideas and opinions, but in a respectful manner. Because we have had some inappropriate stuff happen a little bit online. One of the issues that we have now is something that you might call trolling. And I don't know if that word translates well, but where some students who might have extreme political perspectives try to disrupt the harmony of the class by throwing out ideas that incite. And we are again putting in that new code of conduct, but we also have the ability to mute students on Zoom if we feel that they're being inappropriate. You can also force students into a breakout room if you can't control them. And lastly, we have told them if the violations become egregious, we have the ability to limit their interactions in Zoom. Now, we also use some tools. We have, you know, like computer programs like Turnitin that are designed to catch plagiarism. And despite our repeated warnings, we do have problems with plagiarism. I would imagine that your higher education institution probably has access to a similar tool. And I would encourage you to use that.
I will say, just to tag on to what she just said about Turnitin, that I have found that, well, one reason we don't, we have open book exams and quizzes is because just to try to, you know, they're usually, our exams and quizzes, especially in my classes, are low weighted as far as the overall grade. Much more emphasis is put on them writing case studies, they're doing book reviews, they're doing some kind of presentations or report, because all of those can be checked and Turnitin for plagiarism. And I actually think that it's much easier to catch those kinds of honor code violations online than it was in the classroom, because in the classroom, if they hand you a paper, then okay, you don't have that great tool to check it and stuff. So online actually helps, I think, with honor code violations and plagiarism.
I agree, Janet.
Thank you. So the next question, our audience is very engaged today. Just want to let you know that.
That's great. Thank you.
There's a bunch of questions.
Yeah, we're happy. I thought there would only be a couple people out there and we wouldn't have any questions. So that's great.
So how have you resolved the need for face-to-face courses with programs that are accredited by accreditation agencies? And can they maintain their accreditation even after transitioning from face-to-face to virtual?
Janet, you want me to take that?
You can take it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so we go through accreditation. We go through several accreditations. We have 3 accrediting bodies that are looking at our classes, including, well, 4 if you count an internal review. So all the accreditations usually have to do with contact hours, right? You have to show that you're actually teaching these students in an online environment. And Janet mentioned this before, but one of the ways to achieve those contact hours is to have different assignments or activities that show the students are engaged and participating. Now, these don't have to be online because I understand there are limitations to internet connections, right? So for example, they can be take-home assignments or weekly open book pop quizzes, or, you know, make a video of yourself speaking about a book you read, something that's relevant. So for us with accreditation, when we get our syllabi approved, it's not, they don't particularly care so much about the style of offering. It's all about showing those contact hours of learning. So I would be prepared to defend in your syllabus what assignments you've got that show weekly your students are engaged in the course.
Thank you. So 2 more questions and then we wrap this up. How much focus do you recommend faculty should have in creating a culture of acceptance and friendship within an online class in order to achieve a deeper discussion?
Well, that's a good question. I'll start with that, but I'm sure Audrey has something to add on that. I think the tone that you set as the professor has a lot to do with how your students respond to you and how they respond to one another. I think that is number one, the most important thing that you can do. If you respect your students, they respect you back, and then they tend to respect everybody else because they see you respecting everyone. I think that a personal example, in my personal opinion, goes a long way. Now, Audrey can add some other more technical things probably. But.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that I think you can be friendly without being friends.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we are very friendly. And
we're warm.
Right now, we're warm. Our students are so lonely. They are so lonely in this pandemic. They've been at home with limited contact. And so sometimes just a nice email reply to their question that's both positive and upbeat, I think makes a difference. I think it's appreciated.
So thank you. And well, I said 2 more questions, but now I'll say it again, 2 more questions. In the same way that you regulate content, what do you consider should be the academic course load for a faculty member that is teaching virtually to ensure the quality of the program? And we're probably talking here about teaching faculty.
Okay. Well, I will tell you what I teach. I teach 3 graduate sections and 3 undergrad sections, all online. I have 1 mentor in 1 class.
A TA, what you would call a TA.
Yeah, what you would call a TA. It's kind of so in 1 class, and a graduate assistant that helps me with part of the assignments in the other class. So the rest of them I do, all the graduate I do all on my own. I have really large sections, as does Audrey, in a couple of my classes. One of my classes sometimes has 160 students in it, so that's the one I have the TA in, because honestly, you just can't get all that grading done. So sometimes it is important to have some help, and you have to decide which are assignments that you want to grade because maybe of your own, expertise or whatever. Like I have a planning and policy course that I grade all the planning assignments because I have all those years of experience or whatever to really give them good feedback. But quizzes and exams, the answers are clear what they are. Sometimes I'll allow a TA to help me with.
Yeah, and I should mention that our teaching load is determined by the university.
Yeah, not us.
So how many courses we teach is determined by the university. Now, when you start talking about course size, I would highly recommend that if you're new to online teaching, you keep it very small. Now, Janet and I both have huge classes, like she said, with 160, but we've been doing this for 20 years. So we really, really know how to manage our time. And, you know, we also have a lot of help. We have a lot of TAs. We both do. And so, but if you're just starting out, I would say a big class would be 20.
Yeah, just start small, because just to get a feel for how long it's going to take you, and you can adjust the assignments, and you can find strategies, which you have to do when you have large classes, that maybe on the reading quizzes, for example, you can set them up online so that a lot of the answers will grade themselves with multiple choice questions, or or true false questions or whatever. So you can take little shortcuts like that. What I don't take shortcuts with are in those writing assignments and stuff that I feel are so critical and that really demonstrate the knowledge of the students or the effort of the students sometimes.
And I would really emphasize for those of you teaching online that the biggest time management issue for Janet and I are those individual emails, right? So given our load, we probably get an extraordinary amount of individual emails that need to be replied to. And that number is a gradual increase towards the end of the semester. So we will get, let's say 2% of the students will email us at the beginning of the semester, but by the end of the semester, you're probably looking at 15 to 30% of the students who want to communicate directly with us. So it's really important that you understand as the semester goes on that you're going to have a lot of time dedicated to guiding your students. And obviously it's the old rule too, that you spend about 80% of your time on the lowest 10% of your performers. So that's really, that's a classic teaching challenge.
Quick questions. One is, are there any specific technology platforms that you recommend for online coursework and programs? And to cap everything off, do you have plans to work with any Dominican academic institutions? And what sort of fields are you interested in collaborating with Dominican higher education institutions?
Well, I'll start, and then Audrey can summarize too. We've in our university and in our program, we have worked with 3 different platforms as far as online learning. We currently, Blackboard is the most recent before our current, which is Canvas. Both of those are very good. I personally prefer Canvas, but they all have some strengths and weaknesses, but I think they've come a long way from when we first started. We had another one called UCompass or something. I don't even know if it's still around now or not. What was the other part of the question? I forgot. Maybe Audrey can handle that part.
The other part of
yeah, we're absolutely willing to collaborate with anyone,
Yes.
That's what we love to listen. Obviously you can tell by us that we're people persons, and we love engaging with other colleagues from other universities. It would be a real pleasure to work in any way that we can. I don't think there's any, as far as online learning, I think we could work with any kind of discipline goes. We'd be happy to work with anyone on that. For emergency management related things, again, anyone who's interested in that field, we could do as well. I don't know if Audrey has something to add to that.
I would say that Janet and I also have a big network of colleagues at our universities. So if you are looking for somebody in a specific discipline that is not ours, we are more than happy to try and introduce you.
Yeah, we'll facilitate a meeting.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this great Q&A session. To our audience, Dr. Janet Dilling and Dr. Audrey Casserleigh, they're both at Florida State University, and you can find them by email. You can Google them, but if you email them, jdilling, that is JDILLING at fsu.edu for Dr. Janet Dilling, and Dr. Casserleigh will be Heffron, that's AHEFFRON at em.fsu.edu. Once again, Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you everyone for hanging with us.